In today's video, I wanted to continue the discussion about the 50-year mortgage proposal by Trump. As a reminder, it is just a proposal for conventional loans. And I think that it is something we all have to discuss as a country on the risks and the benefits of this proposed program. And here's something that I recently pointed out in a Mortgage Professional magazine interview, that I do think that it is a foreclosure crisis waiting to happen. Now, I'm not one of these like crash bros. You're not going to see a bunch of people, a bunch of me saying, oh my God, everything's dying, the market's crashing, blah, 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 just to get views, to scare people. Because I think that is dangerous. And I think a lot of it is just to get views and to get traffic and make lots of money. I'm not all about that, but I do see some things that I'm very, very concerned about that nobody's talking about. But I'm going to bring this up right now. As a mortgage professional, it's my duty to highlight these things. So here, let's talk about it. So whenever you sell a house, it's not free to sell a house. You got to pay your realtor. Typically it's 6%. Now I get that there's been a lawsuit and that varies, but it's typically 6% to sell a house these days. But people forget there's also title fees. So you're really closer to 7% to sell your house off the bat. So if you buy a house for 300 grand, you sell it a week later, you're down 7%. Now, if you did a conventional loan, you did a traditional 3% down. Okay, after the realtor fees, you're down 4%, right? So how long would it take to make back that 4% just off of paying off principal on the loan? Now, as we know, on the 50, it's a slower pay down than 30. Hence the reason it takes 50 years to pay it off. Pretty simple. Now, I actually did the numbers, and what I found out is that, if you run an amortization schedule, it takes about 10 years to get you to that 93% LTV or 7% equity in the home to just break even on the house. Now, you can say, okay, there's appreciation. I do get there is appreciation, but what if the appreciation doesn't happen fast enough? On VA, it's even worse. Now, VA, there is no proposal on the table right now for VA. But VA typically follows conventional guidance. And I do think that if they do decide to go down this road for conventional, that VA would be pressured to match it. And I do have fears that VA would match it. And that's even scarier. I've done a whole video where I outline the amortization schedule. I'm not going to show that again. I will link to it below. But it's more like 18 years to get you to 93 LTV, 93. In other words, 7% equity in the house. That would be that break-even point. Again, appreciation could make that back up. But what if it doesn't? That's the scary part. Here's what really, and so we have what's called negative equity risks. If you're selling a house for less than it's worth, then you need more money closing. That's how that works. Here is the problem I have with this, and where I have a lot of concerns that it could cause a foreclosure crisis. This is something that we in the mortgage space know, that when someone is upside down in equity, foreclosures skyrocket. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. It happens all the time on cars right now. And I have people call me all the time. They're like, "Oh yeah, I let my car go." Well, why did you let the car go? Well, I had to bring $5,000 to sell my car, and I don't have it, so I just called the credit union and I said, "Here, you take your stinking car back." Could it happen to houses? Absolutely. Does it happen to houses? Absolutely. That's part of the reason there was that crisis in 08, is that people were so maxed out on their property that they started giving them up, and then as the values went down, there are more and more people upside down on their equity. They kind of spiraled. Could that happen again? I think it very well could. So there you go. That is why I think the 50-year mortgage, it could potentially be a foreclosure crisis waiting to happen. What do you think? Am I full of it? Do I have a point here? Comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. As always, if you have any mortgage questions, feel free to give me a call, 937-572-3713 or scarpro.com. Talk to you soon. Bye.